guys, Happy New Year. It's January the 1st, and because it's January the 1st, I thought I would do a video on weight loss. The start of a new year is synonymous with many people joining a gym, trying to lose weight, having their New Year's resolution to improve their body composition. And I've done this type of video before, but I just wanted to go over some of the main problems that people will encounter when they try to lose body weight. Now, the first thing to say is that when I say lose weight, what I'm really referring to is losing body fat. Most people don't make the distinction. Most gyms don't make the distinction. Most personal trainers don't really understand or make the distinction. To improve your body composition, the goal is to lose body fat. It's body fat that is causing the increase in your weight, and it's body fat that will cause the decrease, the detrimental effects to your health. So it's losing body fat that is important. Losing weight, although I refer to it as losing weight or as weight loss, really we need to distinguish between the body fat and the skeletal muscle. It's possible to lose body fat, it's possible to improve your body composition but not lose any weight, because you can also increase, at the same time, you can increase your skeletal muscle mass. So that's very important. It's something that people don't consider. It's something that people don't really understand when they go into this. Just because the scales haven't changed doesn't mean that your body composition hasn't improved. So the idea is to lose body fat. We don't want to lose skeletal muscle mass. We don't want to lose bone mass, because that would further deteriorate our health. And this is really the nuance of why the mainstream accepted methods of weight loss don't actually work. The accepted mainstream method of losing weight is to join a gym, go on a low energy diet, and this will then induce weight loss. And that is true. You will lose weight if you do that. And many people will join a gym in January, they will go on a low energy diet, and they will lose body weight. And they will think that they're making progress because they have lost body weight, when actual fact, many of those people will actually be making the situation within their internal biochemistry actually worse. What you really need to understand is that weight loss and weight gain, and obesity is a disease. It's a situation of metabolic dysfunction. It's a situation where the internal biochemistry is not working correctly, and that has been caused by eating a poor quality Western style diet. Now, a Western style diet is the type of diet that is normally eaten by most people that live in developed countries. So if you go into an average supermarket and you see what's in people's supermarket trolleys, they are eating a Western style diet. Now, the key factor of a Western style diet, the key point as to why it makes it detrimental to the health, is the fact that it contains refined starches and sugars. This is the main problem with the Western diet. Those refined starches and sugars, they have detrimental glycemic effects on our physiology. In other words, they cause too rapid a rise in blood sugar, and they also stimulate a pathway in the liver called the de novo lipogenesis pathway, which creates fatty acids. Those two changes alone will cause the development of a condition called insulin resistance, and once insulin resistance has developed, the cells no longer respond correctly to the hormone insulin. Blood sugar levels tend to rise and they stay elevated. Fatty acid and triglyceride levels in the blood also stay elevated. There are changes to lipoprotein levels. There are changes to other hormones, including leptin, which is one of the signal molecules that tells you how much body fat you have. And what we start to see is a general deterioration in the appetite and the energy regulatory mechanisms within the body. And once that happens, it's very difficult to actually cause weight loss, to induce body fat loss? Because the body is in a situation where nothing is working correctly. All of its regulatory feedback mechanisms that normally allow us to regulate our own body weights, to regulate our appetites, to regulate our physical activity, those systems are not working correctly. And if they're not working correctly, it becomes very difficult to actually induce weight loss. So obesity and weight gain is a metabolic disease. It should be classified like any other disease. It is characterized by an underlying pathology in our biochemistry and our physiology, and that pathology is really what needs to be addressed in order to be able to lose weight. If you are in a situation where you have developed this disease, this metabolic disease, and you try and force the issue by performing exercise, by joining a gym, and you try to cut your calories, you're not addressing the underlying metabolic problem. All you're doing is adding a stress on top of that metabolic problem, which actually causes the problem in some cases to actually to get worse and to deteriorate. And this is why it's very important to distinguish between weight loss and fat loss, because you can perform exercise and you can consume a low energy diet and you will lose weight. But some of that weight, and in many studies that have looked into this, suggest that as much as 50% of that weight is skeletal muscle. Now, that is very detrimental, because the skeletal muscle you have determines your resting metabolic rate. So if you're in a situation where you have this metabolic dysfunction, you join a gym, you perform exercise, you eat a low energy diet, and you lose weight, 50% of that weight will be muscle. That's what the studies show. Around 50% of all of that weight that you lose will be skeletal muscle. That lowers your resting metabolic rate. So now the amount of energy that you require to maintain your bodily systems has been reduced. So you have to eat even less food in order to be able to cause more weight loss. When you eventually and most people, this will happen to most people when you eventually get to the point where you can't continue this anymore, because your body will simply reject, because it's in a state of disease and because you're forcing this stress on top of it, your body will simply reject, both psychologically and physically, you will reject this system, this strategy that you're following. So you'll go back to your old eating habits and you'll go back to your old lifestyle. And this means you'll consume your old level of calories and perform your old level of exercise, but now you've lost skeletal muscle, so that the energy that you are now consuming is too much for your daily requirement, and therefore you start to put weight on, and you actually gain weight. And most people who go through this cycle of diet and exercise will gain back all of the weight that they've lost, but they won't gain back the skeletal muscle. The weight that they gain will simply be body fat. So the end result of one of these cycles of diet and exercise is that you've lost skeletal muscle, your resting metabolic rate has been damaged, your internal biochemistry and physiology is still in a state of dysfunction, and you've actually gained body fat, adipose tissue. So your body composition has deteriorated. And of course, what happens is then your personal trainer or your exercise guru or your nutrition guru will tell you that all that happened is that you simply didn't try hard enough, and if you do it again but try harder, you will actually lose the weight. You've just got to stick with it. So the person will be convinced that if they try again, they will actually lose the body. They will improve their body composition. They become convinced it was their fault for not sticking with the diet, so they go through another cycle, and obviously the damage is then the same damage occurs again, and you go through this cycle every year trying to lose this weight, and all that happens is that your body composition gets worse and worse and worse. You've come further away from health, and following this type of this strategy is akin to a moth just continually flying at a light bulb. It's pointless, it doesn't help anybody, and yet it is the mainstream accepted way of losing weight, despite the fact that anecdotally virtually nobody loses weight in this way. Now, of course, you'll always get the person that said, well, I followed that, I ate a low energy diet and I performed exercise and I lost weight. Well, some of those people may be lying. That people do lie about things like this. There are other group of people that will also have made dietary changes and improved their diet and eliminated the foods that are causing the problem, and so they may get some benefit. And of course, there are always genetically there will be people that respond in different ways. So I'm generalizing. This is for the vast majority of people, those people whose body compositions have deteriorated over a number of decades. They get to the point, maybe in their 30s, maybe their 40s, maybe even their 50s, and they say, oh, I need to lose weight. So they go through this cycle of diet and exercise, and the vast majority of people will respond in the same way, and they will simply have a deterioration in their body weight. So this video really is to, maybe you've been through that cycle of dieting and exercise and deterioration of body weight, and no matter how little you eat, you can't lose the weight. It's very common. Maybe you don't want to go through that, and you've read about it and you want some advice into to lose body fat, improve your skeletal muscle levels, improve your body composition, and improve your health. Hopefully this video will save you some time. In my opinion, the best way to lose body fat is to remove the cause of the body fat gain, and in most cases that will be the refined starches and the refined sugars. Now, the important thing to understand here is if you remove things from the diet and you make dietary improvements, these should be permanent. We're not talking here about going on a diet, staying on the diet for a few weeks or a few months and then going back to your old eating habits. If you want to improve your body composition, you have to eat in a way that will reflect the improvements in your body composition. And that means the changes are permanent, they have to be permanent, and you have to improve your diet, improve your health, so it is a permanent feature. This is not a short-term diet, this is not a short-term fix. So if you're not prepared to cut sugar out of your diet, if you're not prepared to reduce the amount of refined starches that you consume, you're not prepared to eat a high quality diet for the rest of your life, it's very unlikely that you will be able to make permanent body composition improvements. So that's something that one of the caveats that needs to be made clear before I go into the details of really how this is, this strategy can work. In terms of the improvements that you make, I would very much suggest that you make them very gradually. Most people, when they decide to lose weight, will make all of the changes in a single day, and that will put a large amount of stress psychologically and physically on their bodies, and it makes it much more likely that person will not be able to maintain those changes. I would suggest that the changes are made gradually, one at a time. Firstly, psychologically, that's much easier. If you make a very small gradual changes, they're not really noticed, and therefore over time you become more acclimatized to your new diet. Secondly, the reason I would do that is because it gives your physiology time to adapt to the changes, and therefore your physiology won't feel that this is a stress. And secondly, it allows you to get feedback on what the changes are actually doing to your body. If you make a number of changes at the same time and you see some improvements in your body composition, or maybe something gets worse, you don't actually know which of those changes have caused those effects. So it's very important to make one change at a time and then note the effects that you have downstream in order to be able to assess whether that's an effective strategy for you, because you have to educate yourself to become your own nutritionist. Is what I've tried to tell everyone in all my videos. This is about educating yourself so that you can become your own nutritionist. You can understand your own physiology and your own biochemistry, and you can make the changes that suit your own personal unique biochemistry. Where would I start if somebody came to me and said, Rob, I'd like to lose some weight, what could I do? The first thing I would suggest is to remove sugar from the diet. It's the easiest thing to remove from the diet. It's the most obesogenic food in the diet. In other words, it's the food that is most likely to cause weight gain. It's the easiest thing to remove from the diet, and if you remove sugar, you will also be removing a number of other anti-nutrients and detrimental foods that really shouldn't be in your diet. So that's where I'd start. If you can't remove all of the sugar from your diet, and let's say you have sugar in your tea, remove that first, or don't have 2 sugars in your tea, have 1, then go down to half. Do it gradually, but have the ultimate goal of eliminating refined crystalline sugar from your diet. So that, what does that mean? It means don't eat cakes, don't eat biscuits, don't eat anything that's processed and had added sugar to it, which includes soft drinks. Don't add sugar to, for example, if you have tea or if you have hot drinks, don't add sugar to those. It means avoiding really most of the processed food that causes in most people causes their weight gain. What you actually find is that even that simple first step is enough to cause most people to actually lose weight. If you do nothing else to your diet, but you eat a typical Western diet, but you remove all sources of sugar, it's very unlikely you won't lose body weight, because sugar is very highly obesogenic. The fructose moiety of sucrose, which is table sugar, which is what we nutritionists call sugar, it can induce insulin resistance in rats and other animals within 2 weeks. It's highly detrimental, and that is at a level that has been shown to be consumed by some humans. Okay, it's the upper limit of what the humans will consume in terms of fructose, but if you feed that upper limit to rats, they will develop insulin resistance within 2 weeks, and they will put large amounts of weight on. And guess what? You remove the sugar from their diet, they go back to eating normal rat chow, and they lose all the weight. So it's not rocket science. This, it's quite easy. Removing sugar is a very good place to start. Once you've become acclimatized to having much less sugar or no sugar in your diet, the next thing to remove is refined starch. So this means if you currently consume brown or white bread, typical processed bread, you need to switch to a whole grain granary bread. If you look at your breakfast cereals, are your breakfast cereals the ready to eat sugary breakfast cereals that are very popular because they have this refined nature? If they are, switch to oats, rolled oats, switch to a whole grain breakfast cereal. This will again have a large effect on your body composition. After removing sugar, which is in itself a refined carbohydrate, removing refined starch, starch also being carbohydrate, removing refined starch has been shown time and again in studies to have weight loss effects. Those people, and many epidemiological studies have shown that those people who eat the most whole grains, in other words, whole grains are unrefined starches, the people that eat the most whole grains are the people with the lowest body weights. So if you can have those two strategies, and you can actually complete them and follow that diet, most people will actually lose most of the excess weight that they have. And it may take a while, it may take years for this to happen. Remember, the weight gain that you've experienced has been insidious over decades, so it's going to take years to redress the metabolic dysfunction that you have. So don't expect miracles, don't expect very rapid weight loss. Most people who are genetically normal and who are, what I would call obese, may only lose a pound, 2 pounds a week. At a very, that's a very realistic amount to lose, but probably the upper level. Most people will lose a little bit less. If you lose half a pound a week, as long as you can stay on that diet for the rest of your life, you've only got to follow that diet for a couple of years, and you'll actually start to see major changes. One of the examples that I always like to give is iron deficiency. Even if you take supplements and you eat a high meat diet and you have lots of iron in your diet, if you're iron deficient, it can take up to 2 years to actually treat an iron deficient anemia. That's the type of length of scale that we're talking about for dietary changes to occur. So for weight loss, that's something that's taken decades to manifest into a physical form that you can actually see and feel. It's going to take many years to actually get the body composition the way you want it. But you should see good progress in 6 months. If you're not seeing good progress in 6 months, you need to assess your strategy and how it's working. You don't need to exercise. This is the third point. You don't need to exercise to cause body fat loss. I've talked about this extensively on my videos, and I've written about it extensively on my blog. I've been researching this for a long time, and the evidence, from my point of view, the evidence I've seen in the scientific literature doesn't support a role for exercise in weight loss for overweight and obese individuals. Aerobic exercise does appear to have weight loss properties for those people who don't have a metabolic dysfunction. For athletes, those people that want to get into a particular weight class, for example, boxers, or martial artists, those people that want to lose subcutaneous fat, and are prepared to sacrifice some muscle with that fat in order to be able to improve their overall body composition and get their weight down, aerobic exercise has a place. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But for those people that have abdominal fat, they don't have very much, their problem is not subcutaneous fat. Their problem is this metabolic dysfunction that's causing this abdominal fat. It's a deeper visceral fat, which is symptomatic of disease, symptomatic of metabolic dysfunction. Aerobic exercise doesn't appear to be that effective for these people. It also places a lot of, if you're overweight, it places a lot of stress on your joints, and you may not get the health of your joints back if you damage them. And on top of that, it's an added physical and psychological stress at a point where you're trying to concentrate on other things such as improving your diet. I don't think exercise is a great tool. If you do want to perform exercise, those people that have been through cycles of dieting and losing weight but decreasing the quality of their body composition, the only exercise I would recommend that you do is resistance training exercise, and I would do that simply because it's a very good way of building skeletal muscle, and it will return your skeletal muscle levels to the original levels, or maybe even improve them from the point where before you started dieting. So resistance training is the only exercise I would recommend for those people that are trying to lose body weight and improve their body composition, because when you add skeletal muscle to your frame, you will improve your body composition. And this is a problem for many people who are overweight that have been through these cycles of dieting and exercise. They have poor muscle tone, they have low levels of skeletal muscle, and they do need to actually do some physical activity in terms of resistance training to redress that. But generally, as a general statement, I don't think you need to perform exercise to improve your body composition to let's say to the levels that you would expect in a normal individual. Obviously, if you want to look like a bodybuilding champion or a fitness competitor, you'll have to do some resistance training and some exercise. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people getting their health back. I'm talking about people being normal body weights. So that's a different kettle of fish, and that's something for a different video. But generally, exercise is not required for getting your body composition back to what I would consider the normal body composition of an average person. But diet is very important, and therefore that's something that I would concentrate on. As well as decreasing the sugar in your diet, and as well as decreasing the refined carbohydrates, increasing the protein is a very good idea for two reasons. Firstly, those people that eat higher protein diets tends to accumulate skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle requires nitrogen, and nitrogen is present in protein. So protein is a skeletal muscle building food. But secondly, protein has very beneficial glycemic effects. So remember, it's detrimental glycemic effects that cause weight gain, and protein has beneficial glycemic effects. It decreases the rate that the starches and the sugars in your diet will get into your blood, and therefore the more protein you have in your diet, the more control you have over your blood sugar. So it's another arrow to put in your quiver in terms of making dietary changes that will actually allow you to maintain this more consistent blood sugar that is more is less pathological in its nature. So high protein diets, and if we have a look at the removal of starch, the removal of sugars, and eating a high protein diet, this is effectively all that the Atkins diet was. The Atkins diet is followed by many people. There have been studies that show that low carbohydrate diets are effective, and the reason they're effective is because if you remove carbohydrates from the diet, you have to remove sugar and refined starch. That's all the Atkins diet is doing. It's removing the cause of the effects of weight gain. I don't believe you have to follow an Atkins diet to lose weight, to improve your body composition, but you do have to remove sugar and refined starch, and the Atkins diet is one way of doing that. But there are other diets that are perfectly acceptable to follow. You don't have to follow a zero carbohydrate diet, you just have to remove the sugar and the starch if it's refined. You can still eat a starch, and you can still eat some of the foods that you like bread and breakfast cereals, but you must choose whole grain versions of those cereals. So, I mean, those three changes alone are going to be the ones that will cause the most, the most improvements. I would also recommend that you take a multivitamin and mineral tablet, a high quality one. There are many good quality ones. Solgar is a company that make good quality multivitamins. Lambert's make good quality multivitamins, but I don't sell vitamins. I don't have any association with vitamin companies. Any of the high quality ones made by a reputable company, and I have made videos on what to look for in a multivitamin tablet before, so you can look through some of my older videos to see what sort of thing you should be consuming. But that will help ensure that any of the nutrient deficiencies that you may have, such as particularly a chromium deficiency, which is required for the correct function of insulin, that those nutrient deficiencies are corrected over time, and it will make a difference. If you've been consuming a typical Western diet, you'll almost certainly be deficient in certain minerals and certain vitamins, and therefore it's a good policy to take a high quality multivitamin and mineral supplement in order to be able to correct those deficiencies. That doesn't mean that you have to, you can skip on high quality foods. This is a supplement in addition to a high quality diet. It's not an alternative. You won't find many benefits from consuming a multivitamin and mineral tablet if you eat a very low quality diet, because the positive effects will simply be cancelled out by the detrimental effects of the diet. Then on top of those those basic changes that you can make, which are going to have quite a significant impact on your body composition and improve your health, you can implement all the other smaller changes that are going to have incrementally very small effects, but added together they're going to be they're synergistically going to be very supportive of improved body composition and improved health. And they include things like increasing the amount of antioxidants you have in your diet, consuming green tea, maybe drinking half a glass of red wine a day, looking at the amount of fruits and vegetables that you have in your diet and trying to eat as many different coloured fruit and vegetables as you can, trying to make variety in your diet, trying to get nutrients from a variety of different sources. And these are the things that I've covered in quite in detail in many of my other videos, so I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video, but just I simply want to refer you perhaps to my video back catalogue, and that you can pick out the things that you want to implement, and remember to gradually implement these over time so that you have time to get used to them, so that psychologically it's not too stressful. These changes don't cause too much of a disruption in your normal routine, and try and implement the changes one at a time so that you can see the effects that they have. So that really this is just a video as a caveat, as a warning, hopefully as a helpful guide to those people that are thinking about the new year, a New Year's resolution to lose weight. Just some information really to think about. Hopefully it will save you some time and effort, and hopefully it will allow you to get as efficiently as you can to your body weight goal. So I hope it was interesting. If you have any comments about the video, please leave them in the comments box below, and as always I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Eat well, stay healthy, and protect yourself. And I will see you soon for another video. Take care.